The psychedelic revolution is here. If you want to integrate your visionary experiences into your purpose, get clear on your entrepreneurial path, and help people while you do what you love, then this podcast is for you. Welcome to The Psychedelic Entrepreneur, Medicine for These Times. I'm your host, Beth Weinstein. I'm a spiritual business coach, 3-time entrepreneur, and a lifelong student of psychedelics and sacred plant medicines. You carry your own unique medicine, and your medicine is what we need for these times. This podcast will help you to share your medicine so you can create transformation in the world. Listen in on conversations with psychedelic leaders, changemakers, and conscious entrepreneurs who are living proof that a better world is possible when you follow your heart and live in alignment with your soul. This interview is with Pema Dolma, who is formerly known as Acacea Sherman-Lewis, who I interviewed on this podcast a few years ago. Acacea was a psychedelic researcher, lecturer, and educator working with very large doses of psilocybin, and she's absolutely brilliant. She is now living on retreat and on the path to becoming a Buddhist lama. She is currently a Buddhist nun. So I thought it'd be really interesting to interview her and see what life is like. I will say she did the interview on her phone. So if you're watching this on video, just know that, she's on retreat and we did the best we can and the quality is still pretty good. And I really encourage you to give this a listen. Thank you for being here. And I will actually link to our former episode in the show notes. Thank you.
Yeah, this is not like regular any of that. As a matter of fact, you have no context for it really in the regular world. You can talk about dry fasting, you can talk about fasting. This is neither nor in any way, shape, or form like any sort of Western fasting regimen or keto diet or any of that actually, because it integrates full karmic profound purification, and then also the practices that you're doing have been perfected over 900 and some odd years, This is an enlightened lineage, meaning every single teacher in our lineage reached enlightenment, including our current teacher's teacher. And we feel, and I think it's well deserved, that our current guru, he is completely enlightened. We feel that way about him, even though he himself wouldn't say that about himself. Very few enlightened beings do. But it's interesting where when we fast, the first day you receive the empowerment to do the practice, Thousand Arm Chenrezig practice. We do something called abiding in the fast, which is where your Buddha nature is revealed through tantric practices where you visualize and do deity yoga. And then you also purify a lot of the obscurations and negative karmas through 35 Buddha confession prayer, through resolve to practice excellence, through these micro practices that are embedded in this 300-page sadhana that we do every single day. And you're completely guided every single day. So it's not like you just are left to your own devices. Oh, I'm going to drive fast and go skateboarding. I'm going to drive fast and go see my mom. No, everything that you do, your body, speech, and mind has to be virtuous activity. So there's no speaking allowed on dry fasting days. And you're shocked how much speaking is based on non-virtuous thoughts and actions. That's what our teacher has emphasized to us a lot. A lot of the times when you're speaking, you're talking about your anger, your aggressiveness, your greed, your pride, your jealous, and you don't even know it. You're just having a conversation, gossiping with somebody about something that happened last week. And before you know it, your energy is actually being sapped through those means. And so when you practice this higher level of discipline where you're not speaking, you're only doing virtuous speech, you're chanting Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum in and of itself is a purification practice. Shakyamuni Buddha had to go, and supplicate other Buddhas to receive this mantra. This mantra, even though it's common, it's like, how you see the movie Doctor Strange, where Doctor Strange walks into the Ancient One's office and he's like, I see this in in a gift shop somewhere. Where are you going to teach me? And then she touches his forehead and he goes out of his body. It's not like that, right? Well, it depends, But, so many people are so familiarized with the westernization of Dharma is so such that very few people have access to an enlightened guru on demand who can explain to them articulately in English, and a language that they're already very familiar with. Hey, when you do this practice, this, and this, and this is what to expect. And then you're going through these experiences. This is what that means. Very few people have access to gurus, in our lineage, gurus of this caliber, many times, like, venerables, and His Holiness in India. There's so many different great high lamas that have not billions, millions of students, and so it's like getting an audience with them is very difficult. But our teacher has lunch with us every other day, and so we get to hear stories about how he sees the world, as well as sometimes he'll answer our personal questions. And that's not something that I see a lot in Dharma, is that accessibility factor being there. So when you have questions about, okay, can I really sustainably drive fast for 50 days and come out on the other side not emaciated and feel okay? Well, this was started by a woman named Galungma Palmo who had leprosy, and her leprosy was cured. Not only that, she reached enlightenment through doing this practice. So I came to Dharma looking for healing, really. I came to Dharma out of a need to try and figure out what my partner was doing at the time of death that was so profound. Buddha passed away in this victorious pose, laying on his right side with his right hand under his head. And I'll never forget when I found my partner, who the anniversary of their parinirvana or transition day is tomorrow. I would never be able to talk about this before now, really. They were found, in the shower having passed out in that position. And it took us about an hour to get them out of the shower because they passed out in front of the door. And then, when the police came and did the autopsy report, it was a clot. It was a deep vein thrombosis and caused a massive heart attack, and Mike passed away quickly and relatively without a lot of pain, it seems like, but it devastated me. And I'll never forget that even though I was freaking out and screaming at the top of my lungs, when I found my partner, there was this profound peace in the house. And I couldn't justify how a tragedy could happen. And yet the world seemed like it was glowing with so much love and profound light at the same time. I couldn't quantify how everything seemed perfect, even though my life had just suddenly fallen apart within a 15-minute time frame. In fact, to make matters worse, at that time, I was even miscarrying. And I didn't know it. I was just in a lot of pain and also freaking out. And simultaneously, there's this clear light. There's this beautiful, blissful energy in the space, which is significant of, someone who's a good practitioner. When they die, Buddhist practitioners many times manifest all sorts of miracles at the time of death, up until rainbows showing up and all sorts of sarira or relics being found in their cremation ashes and things of that nature. And I didn't know any of that. My partner had been doing retreats privately, Medicine Buddha retreat, Amitabha retreat, without a guru, without any instruction for years. And we were working with psychedelics, and Mike would talk about seeing Medicine Buddha. And I was like, okay, that's cool. But, I guess that's what you were thinking of. I guess you were just visualizing it. I guess that's what happened. I kept trying to explain away Dharma phenomenon rather than learning it myself. And a week before Mike passed away, Mike also went by Melody. They were pretty genderqueer, we were talking and we were like, after we have our kids, let's go join a monastery. Let's really become serious practitioners because I want to learn Dharma too. I don't know if I'd become a monk or a nun. Of course, I'm a nun now. But I would be interested. And that's when my partner said, I want to become a monk. And I said, okay, well then let's do it. After Oaxaca, we'll go and we'll find a teacher and we'll figure things out. And so after my partner passed away and a couple of failed relationships, and I just felt so miserable about myself, I was 26, I'm a widow. My teaching academy, I'd been teaching courses. I was a student of some of the greatest psychedelic travelers of the time, Baba Kalindi E. I hadn't even really found out about Lama Mike Crowley. That was someone that my partner followed intensely. He ended up becoming one of my teachers as well, and accepted me as an upasaka, and that's how I got my shoe in the door, so to speak, into studying Dharma, was through the Kagyu lineage, which he's a part of the Karma Kagyu, Karma Kangstong lineage. And then his teachers, some of his teachers, Dzongtsar Khyentse Rinpoche and Kalu Rinpoche. Through meeting second Kalu Rinpoche, I came to find my current guru, Wangchen Rinpoche. And so, this coming to Dharma has been like a 7-year unbroken process, even longer than that before this. But I was a Buddhist practitioner long before I, a year ago, decided to accept my teacher's offer that maybe I should seriously become a practitioner. I should take vows and become a serious practitioner and dedicate my life, to the study of Dharma and helping sentient beings. And I thought about it for a year before I even took the vow. And then I accepted it, went to India, and had the amazing opportunity to sit with His Holiness Taisitsu Rinpoche along with all of the other current monks and nun. Well, yeah, monk and nun. There's one other nun from our center, and take Getsul or novice vows as a monastic. And so I complete my first year on March 26th. So I'm officially a year and change as a nun. And I'm about to start 3-year retreat. And so this is one of the only times I'll get to talk to the public. I only had an hour today. I'm about to go back into the temple and make tormas. All my brothers and sisters are going to be like, oh my God, you had time to do an interview? How did you do that? And you're still doing the shrine, because right now we have a lot of work as a nun. We vacuum, we clean, we make offerings, we have our own individual practice, and then we also take care of people and take care of our guru. And so there's a lot that goes into being a monastic. It's like having 100 different jobs, but they're all jobs that are filled with profound joy and profound devotion. We really believe what we do. Not only believe, we've experienced the benefits of what we do. So when it comes to dry fasting, it clears away a lot of doubt to talk to somebody who has not only gone, let's say, do one Nyungné. You do one Nyungné, and in the doctrine, in the text, from over 900 years, it clearly states that you dissolve 40,000 eons of negative karma. And in Buddhism, we don't have a start. We don't have a creation point. Our planet does, maybe us physically in this reality, we have a birthday. But ultimately, our awareness is infinite. That's what is talked about. And so all sentient beings are referred to as our mothers, as limitless as the sky, because it's understood that in the time that we've existed, and since infinite, immeasurable time periods in other universes, other galaxies, other multiverses even, all the beings that we're entangled with through karma, you don't encounter ant by accident or bee by accident. And so that being is in a different dimension in the animal realm, human realm, hell realm, God realm, demigod realm, hungry ghost realm, but they have still been your mother. And so we have compassion for our mothers as limitless as the sky. That's what is part of our dedication, part of our practices to generate bodhicitta. And bodhicitta is the most important thing in our Vajrayana tradition. Other lineages like Theravada tradition, they follow the right and wrong that Buddha taught. They follow extensively the moral and ethical foundation, the Vinaya, but the difference between Tantric Buddhism, Vajrayana Buddhism, is not only the continuity of Tantra itself, but also the fact that we have the desire to become Buddhas ourselves. And not only that, but the means to be able to do that in one single lifetime, which makes Vajrayana the lightning thunderbolt, kind of like Vajra is like a lightning diamond thunderbolt concept, the nature of mind being that way, meaning that you can't not exist. So if you can't not exist, our guru says a lot, you should try to practice excellence so that we can reach enlightenment, so we can exist enlightenedly, because you're going to have infinite time to become perfect. So when you start planting those seeds of perfect practice, you start generating the causes and conditions for perfect enlightenment. And that's something that I always joked about when I was just in the psychedelic world. Oh, you think you're going to become enlightened? Ah, ha, ha. That's funny. Because I had no concept of meeting not only an enlightened teacher, but also seeing real beings who are, at least if they're not fully enlightened, they're very, very, very close to being that in this reality. And I didn't understand the stories of past beings or the history of these lineages that have survived untainted by Western consumerism and, this a capitalistic guru-disciple relationship that's inauthentic. I thought that the authentic teachers had long gone and that I was probably not likely to find them. So when people would talk to me about Buddhism, I always kind of wrote it off as one of those traditions that, sure, it's very beautiful and altruistic, but you're kidding yourself if you think you're really going to break through, and then when I met my gurus, I was shocked to find out that that was just my own delusional thinking. That was my own assumptions based on my karma. And so karma is just, action, activity, and a lot of people have this spooky view of what karma is. They think it's out to get them or out to get somebody else who did something wrong, but they don't understand that dharma is really a phenomena. There's karmic phenomena that happens, and dharma is understanding that phenomena exactly as it actually is, not how we would delusionally think it to be or illusorily create in our minds a concept of what it could be based on our limited understanding and experience in this lifetime. Dharma is actually, especially Buddha Dharma. There's different kinds of Dharma. There's all sorts of Dharma. There's worldly Dharma, but we make a distinction when we talk about Dharma. We're really talking about Buddha Dharma, or the phenomena of the causes and conditions that liberate sentient beings from suffering. And so, I cannot think of a better way to live the rest of my life out in honor of my partner and honor of my family members and all sentient beings who are suffering, towards an end, transform myself for the betterment of my community. And that's what I think I wanted to do years ago, but just did not have a conduit or a way to really start that process.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so beautiful and so many questions. Two big questions. What lets you know when, like let's say one of your teachers is enlightened or near enlightenment, like what lets you know that, wow, okay, cuz I make jokes about it all the time. I say show me an ascended master here on the earth now.
Yeah, I will show
And
you
maybe they're
one.
not
The future
ascended,
Buddha.
but
So in the text, many Buddhas are prophesied, okay? And so it's like an ant hill. You go in and you go to the zoo and you see an ant mound and there's a queen and then there's like baby queens, right? And then there's some male ants and each one, they're obviously a different part of the colony, right? In Buddhism, what's so cool is we have past Buddhas, present Buddhas, and future Buddhas. And all of the past Buddhas, they predicted the present and future Buddhas. And so it's not left up to, oh, this person just got enlightened and became perfect Buddha overnight. Many times we have historical beings that are here and have been predicted to be here, like Guru Rinpoche, like Karmapa, and the predictions are in the text from over 1,000 years ago. They can't be faked or tainted or made up. These are things that people's parents have taught them and remember and have experienced directly with meeting. One of the most beautiful statues of Buddha is a Jowo Buddha. And it's I hope I'm saying this correctly. Forgive me if I'm wrong, all of you Buddhism Bodhisattvas. Forgive me if I'm wrong. But there's a statue of Buddha that's said to be the most authentic view of what Buddha actually looked like when he was living, because there's a little old lady who was actually alive when Buddha was walking around, that they consulted in the entire process of sculpting and putting together the statue of Buddha. And they asked her when they finished it, does this look like him? And she said, absolutely, this looks like him. So it's old enough, it was gifted from the Emperor of China to Tibet as a wedding gift for when the Princess of China was marrying one of the rulers of Tibet at that time. And so it's something that is not only a cultural relic, it's something that you can still see to this day. You can go and look up the statue. It's one of the most original relics. And then you have the Buddha Shakyamuni Buddha in Bodh Gaya. You can go to where Buddha got enlightened at. You can go and sit under a cousin of the tree. Even though different groups went and burned down certain parts of the tree and stuff, they were able to save saplings. There's still a cousin, a descendant of the actual original tree Buddha got enlightened under, growing right there in Bodh Gaya. And you can sit in the chamber of the stupa in Bodh Gaya and sit in front of the Shakyamuni Buddha statue and feel the energy. It's stronger. And I as someone who's had a multitude of psychedelic substances, I'm known fairly for my high doses. There's nothing I've ever encountered, no substance I've ever encountered that's that energetically potent than to go to Bodh Gaya and sit under the Bodhi tree and just freaking meditate. There's no other higher DMT, ayahuasca, psilocybin ajurensis, you name it, level than that. And it's something that is, as a Westerner, it's easy to not actually have a reference point because we didn't grow up in India. We didn't grow up in Tibet. Our families may not come from cultural Buddhist bloodlines. Heck, my parents are Pentecostal. I had no reference point for who Shakyamuni Buddha is until I started studying and eventually made my way out there myself, you know? And when you study Buddhist teachings, there's this website called 84000.co. That's just numbers, 84000.co. And you can read the 84,000 different teachings that while Buddha lived on the planet, he taught verbally, and it was recorded and written down by his students and translated into English now. It's only like a couple decades since Westerners actually have access to this stuff, you know? Like the translations have gotten so good. I can say Dharma's finally arriving in the West. I think it's so easy to make jokes because it hadn't arrived yet. So many Tibetans were refugees, struggling financially, had no good translators. The translations were crappy. But in the last 35, 40 plus years, I would say that Dharma has become something almost completely accessible to us Westerners, thanks to the hard work of like Anthony Drupchu, Sarah Harding and all these great translators who have tirelessly worked for decades, getting their degrees in Tibetan language and linguistics, because this language was built by an enlightened being. You know, there's no other language on the planet where you can just say, okay, this language is specifically reserved only for the teaching of Dharma, specifically by Lord Buddha, specifically translating it from its original language and then putting it into an actual text script that is designed to transport you to these other states of consciousness and awareness within yourself for purification, for transformation, for practice. Tibetan is an incredibly profound language, even though it's simply said, but profoundly written, you know, from the word of Sanje, you know, opening up, like blossoming in awareness and reaching out, you know, the words Rinpoche, you know, precious one, precious jewel, you know, the way we talk about our teachers, the devotion that we have towards their dedication for the practice of excellence. You know, now that we have a bridge between Pali, Sanskrit, Tibetan, and English, we can really become studiers firsthand on firsthand experiencers of Dharma rather than secondhand taking quotes off the internet and calling it understanding. We can actually have firsthand experiences. And then not only that, some of the enlightened beings, you know, have been unbroken for 900 plus years of reincarnation. They've been amassing knowledge since the 11th century or before that, you know, and one of those examples is Taisitsu Rinpoche, His Holiness Taisitsu Rinpoche. I had the pleasure of meeting him and going through ordination with him. And, you know, if you go back to the Buddhist lineage, Kagyu lineage, head of our lineage is Karmapas. And our lineage goes back to Tilopa, Naropa, Marpa, Milarepa, Gampopa, and then starts first Karmapa, Dusum Kempa, and then after fifth Karmapa, I think, you have his student Drogon Retchen. And Drogon Retchen was first Taisitsu Rinpoche. And the Taisitsus were given a crown, a red crown. And the Karmapas were given a black crown made of what's called dakini hair. And one of the kings that the Karmapa taught saw this, and it's an Indian king. He saw a crown floating above his teacher's head, and he said, can I please bring this into reality so people can really see who you are, you know? And so he had this commissioned. And then, since first till now 17th Karmapa, they've been reincarnating. So every generation has an opportunity to meet a fully enlightened being in every generation for the last 1,000 years. And they accurately predict where they're going to be born, what signs and symbols are going to be there, and what characteristics they will have upon birth, and then are raised by their students, their heart sons. So who knows that person better than someone who was raised by them from 1 year old, like Taisitsu Rinpoche was raised by 16 Karmapas since 18 months old. So to see the picture of him with 18-month-old 17th Karmapa, you know, and even though people dispute and debate, 17th Karmapa might be some other person, it's widely known and respected, you know, in our tradition at least, you know, who 17th Karmapa is, you know, but I won't get too much into that. My point is, you know an enlightened being because the lineage recognizes them through testing. It's not something where you just say, oh, that person's this, you know? There's many, many different phases that a Trulku or a Yangtze has to go through before they're identified as being an enlightened teacher. And even though they might be 30 or 40 years old, they might still be considered a Yangtze. You know, they might not be considered, okay, that person is legitimately the activity of this previous enlightened being. They might only be the speech activity or the physical activity or the mind activity. You know, there's like a couple Dujin Rinpoches, for instance. When you become an enlightened being, you can come back in a multitude of reincarnations. It's not guaranteed you're just going to come back in one. And so there's some who have massive activity in one form incarnation and less activity in another, you know, like Sanjay Nimpa Rinpoche. So there's multiple Sanjay Nimpa Rinpoches, for instance. And then one of them has profound activity in India. Another one is American, doesn't have as much activity, for instance, because of, you know, our karma in America. It's really hard to be raised as an enlightened being here, you know, for instance, lack of resources and discipline and high rent costs, you name it. So, you know, it's important you have that support of your lineage and that you have the respect of your elders. And that's something that's missing in the West, is that respect of your elders part, where not only do your former students respect that you really are who you say you are, but are going to give you the tools to take the reins of something that's tangible, work that you've actually put in motion, and train you in such a way that they were trained by you to continue that work in an ethical and constructive and beautiful way. And that's something that really I feel like outside of Dharma, outside of an enlightened lineage, you're not going to find anywhere else in the world, no matter what spiritual tradition. And I mean, I call myself an anthropologist and a student of many different spiritual traditions, and I don't want to be disrespectful at all, but you know, there's a huge difference between a couple hundred years of being able to trace something back and then claiming it came from 100,000 years ago and being able to perfectly trace for eons what's been going on. There's a huge difference, especially on time scale and accuracy. And so I really appreciate the thoroughness of Dharma, and not only the thoroughness of it, but the infallibility of it. Buddha always said, test my teachings like a goldsmith tests his gold. Don't take anything blindly. And so I put into practice and I've tested everything my teacher has told me for myself to see, is this actually meaningful? Is this actually true? Does this actually help me? And the answer is wholeheartedly yes. And as a Westerner, I've been absolutely disrespectful. And I've been absolutely, you know, I don't know how he puts up with me other than the fact that he's an enlightened being. But I did put to the test his character, his integrity, his morality, his knowledge, to see if he really was on that level. And I gotta say, I've never been more impressed. And I'm continuously, after years, I'm still here. I'm still enjoying the fruits of that in my own spiritual journey.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I guess I never thought about the detailed lineage and the record keeping of,
It has to have a
versus you're
lineage.
right. Like, yeah.
It doesn't
Well,
just fall
yeah,
out of
and
the
there's
sky,
many.
actually. That's not how enlightened
Yeah.
beings work, you know? It's like they don't want to be questioned unnecessarily either. It's like if you're a fully enlightened being, you know when you're going to come back. You know what form you're going to come back in. That's one of the requirements. And if you read the Treasury of Knowledge series written by Jamgon Kongtrul, it talks about what makes an authentic spiritual teacher. And 99.99% of the people that we think of as being spiritual teachers, including previously myself, you know, I wouldn't call myself that, but some people thought of me as a spiritual teacher. We're not qualified. There's qualifications that are incredible. And then what qualifies you to be a good student as well. And so it's important to really ground yourself in understanding what that means, to not harm sentient beings, and what actual teacher, what his characteristics are, because it's well written and it's well stuck to this day, you know? And if it's not something that's going to be completely beneficial, then it's not completely enlightened practitioner. It has to benefit all sentient beings according to their unique dispositions and according to their unique dispositions. And so there's no chance that you're going to meet a so-called enlightened being that's got a ton of, I guess you could say, students saying, oh, he abused me or this, that, and the other. Sure, enlightened beings have obstacles, you know, and sure, some beings do make, what appears to be mistakes to us to teach us, in this reality. But at the same time, there's an overall, it speaks for itselfness about a truly enlightened teacher. And it comes from having a personal friendship, a pure spiritual relationship with that person, and developing that trust authentically from a place of humility and devotion and respect. And we call it practice even in pure phenomenon. And so practice in pure phenomenon is something where, in Vajrayana Buddhism, we don't just take refuge in the three jewels, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. We have the three roots, which is guru, yidam, yidam is mind commitment, and wrathful protector. And the guru represents the Buddhas of all 10 directions, right? And so when we do our refuge, we're not just taking refuge in something that's unseen. You can't just physically walk up to Buddha, but you can walk up to your guru and talk to them. But if you don't come to it with respect, to that person with respect, you're going to miss out. You're not going to be able to see them as anything more than a person. And so it's talked about you in the text. There are several benefits that you can get from having a guru. If you treat the guru like a person, you're going to get a personal benefit. But if you treat the guru as a bodhisattva, you'll get a benefit like they're a bodhisattva. But if you have the ability to see the guru like the Buddhas with the 10 directions, you're going to get a blessing that's also like that as well because of the illusion-like nature of reality. It's like a dream. And so when you put it in those terms, I can see how a lot of people get confused because they don't know anything about the Buddhist structure or cosmology. We study Shipibo cosmology, we study African cosmology, but nobody really talks about Buddhist cosmology outside of India. And it has its own astronomy, astrology, cosmology, medicine system, cultural structure, underpinnings. It is so profoundly vast. It's like asking somebody to see a forest in a pine needle. What we show them on the outside is like a pine needle. What it actually is like an entire forest.
Yeah.
And, you're not going to see the forest unless you
Mm.
have somebody who's like kind of a tour guide. You're like, here, I'm going to show you around, and that's really hard to find with, English speaking people, it's like, the people who are really good guides, they've written a bunch of books, but not everyone learns that way. For me, I'm super ADD. I learn better from experience firsthand, somebody teaching me, and then me exploring for myself hands-on. I learn less better from audiobooks and interviews, So, I mean, some people are going to have to come visit me here at the temple and do Nyungné, and it's free. It's the only...
I would do that in a second. I mean, how long is it? A few weeks? No, a
Well,
month. It's been a month.
You can do up to 50 days, but you don't have to do 50 days at once. You can actually start with like 8 Nyungné, 16 days. You can start with smaller commitments. And even some people come and just do one Nyungné. We don't always have the space because we only have like 30 rooms. But when we do have the space, some people come and do one Nyungné, and then they feel completely transformed just doing 2 days of practice because it engages. It's a Kriya Yoga Tantra. And so it engages your body, your speech, and your mind. Basically, you're like a monk for a day. You take vows. I'm going to abstain from alcohol and intoxicants. I'm abstain from sex. I'm abstain from gossiping. I'm abstain from frivolous activity. I ain't going to kill anybody. I ain't going to steal anything. And you stick with it. And then when you really stick with it, I'm not going to eat at wrong times. I'm not going to speak at wrong times. You start to realize that you can have faith in your true nature again. You can really restore whatever broken kind of faith inside of yourself that limits you from being able to experience your Buddha nature and abide even through hunger, even through a little temporary discomfort, dedicating that merit to all beings who have it worse off than you, beings in hell realms who are experiencing constant misery, beings who are hungry ghosts who can't enjoy one drop of substance because they died in a really horrific way. There are beings like that exist that have it so much worse off than anything we could ever fathom in the human dimension. I know this really intimately because I had a lot of psychedelic journeys where I met beings. I was like, okay, that's messed up, and I think a lot of people have that's messed up moment, but they don't really know what to do about it. And this practice teaches you what to do about it from your inner nature, how to transform into an unlimited wisdom and compassion body, an enjoyment body, a bliss body in your mind. Your mind is infinite. It's vast. It can become anything. So why not become the most wonderful thing it can be while you're alive? Like, how much of a thrill is that? Like, you tap into your childhood
amazing.
joy, you tap into your imagination, and you use your imagination creatively to quantumly entangle your visualization with something that's real inside of you. Your Buddha nature, your essential goodness, your basic goodness exists. It really exists. And then you can use that basic goodness to constructively break out of the ego programming that keeps us in these cycles of victimhood, aggression, attachment, aversion, ignorance, and the five poisons, these emotional states that are going the opposite way of how we really want to go. And every time we have an ego death on psychedelics, we see what we are, but when we have to come back to the real world, we take that attachment to this real back with us instead of allowing ourselves to slowly practice transformation. That's what Vajrayana Tantra is about. It's about slowly practicing transformation in an organized and structured manner that works, that gets you from point A, unenlightened, to point B, awakened, fully awakened. And to be a fully awakened being, it's like some people think it's going to take, millions of lifetimes. And in other traditions, it very well could, because there's no concept of bodhicitta. But bodhicitta is the secret ingredient that Vajrayana has that all these other traditions are really slow to adopt because it takes a lot of work. Developing bodhicitta, seeing all beings, even beings you don't like, as mother-like sentient beings is hard, but it can be trained. And so this is a training ground for that kind of activity to take place.
Beautiful. It's funny because what was it, a year ago, a year and a half ago, you had announced that you're going to be doing this 3-year silence, right? 3 years, 3 months, 3 weeks, 3 days?
I'm still preparing for it.
And all I could think was like, wow, you're doing that at the height of what feels like the most intense time on planet Earth ever. I mean, who knows? We'll see what happens beyond 3 years and 3 weeks. But
Shakyamuni Buddha actually vowed to reach enlightenment during the hardest time on the planet.
that makes me feel better.
That's what Buddhas and Bodhisattvas do. I'm not that yet, but that's the goal.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's not going to get less
Easier.
hard,
No.
based on our wishful thinking, and so that's why it's like, I know, during COVID it was hard. I mean, I lost almost everybody. I lost my teacher at that time. I lost my partner after that. I lost everything I owned. I lost my mind. I mean, how much worse of an experience as a human? I mean, you could have worse than that, but it was pretty bad. It was pretty freaking bad for me, actually. And it was good. It was good bad, because it took me to this point where I realized impermanence. Things change. People get hurt. Suffering is real. And until you get to that point where you're like, everybody's going to lose somebody, everybody's going to die, what's more important, me making money and having a comfy life, or me figuring this stuff out so I can get out of here? Like, I can make a difference in this world and help other people not be stuck in misery. If you can't get yourself out, then you can't help anybody else. Everyone says put the mask on yourself first, but we never think of it in a level of, infinite existence. We think of it on a very relative level, because that's all we can think of at this point. But when we start to zoom out and we have all these spiritual experiences, you learn how vast you really are. And if you've been here so long and you're still having these micro challenges, wouldn't you love to be able to at least get some of the micro stuff to fall into place more easily? And then some of the lessons that you keep learning again and again, wouldn't it be wonderful to get 1% better at handling those problems every time? Just 1%. Because that means that eventually you're going to get to 100%. Eventually you're going to be able to handle it, just like you did everything else in life. When we were kids, it was riding a bike, roller skating. Now it's dealing with divorce paperwork, or it's dealing with a mortgage. It's dealing with somebody being toxic on the internet about you, right? It's all of this stuff. But when we start to move with compassion, we learn, even working with psychedelics, that if we suspend our disbelief and allow ourselves to reset and move from emptiness, we can manifest anything. But Vajrayana Buddhism is about moving from emptiness to manifest your ultimate nature. And that's something that's hard to do with someone who hasn't done it themselves. And you can really tell when someone hasn't because they don't make any sense. A being who's really done that can make it make sense to even a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old or a lion or a tiger or an ant. It's not going to be something where there's a wall up for your mind to be able to wrap itself around, because they're not going to go over your head out of compassion and wisdom for that person they're talking to. They're going to talk to them like a person. They're not going to talk to them like they're speaking on a stage, without compassion. They're going to speak to that person because they care. That's the difference.
Wonderful. Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about, when you say 3 years of silence, like is this like you are not going to even hear about anything in the world, hopefully?
No, it's not like that. It's more like radio silence outside retreat. Inside retreat, there's lots of talking, there's lots of chanting, there's lots of practice. Inside retreat, you're learning constantly. There's lots of different practices. We went to India for 10 days to receive the transmission and empowerments that we need to actually go through 3-year retreat. And we don't know if 3-year retreat is going to happen at the end of this year, but we're already starting to prepare. We're in 108 Nyungné right now. And 108 is something that's an extremely high commitment. And so our teacher is giving us an opportunity to start retreat by us doing this. So technically I'm in retreat right now. Tomorrow I won't be allowed to speak, of course. I will be fasting, but it's going to continue like that until October. And then that's probably when it's going to go into what appears to be radio silence in the outside world. I won't be using my phone, at least not as much. I'll be receiving letters and mail mostly. If you want to send me cookies, as long as I don't have any egg, ginger, garlic, or onion, please send me cookies. I'm kidding. I will share. And so, stuff like that, and so we don't know very much
your family,
about,
like family visits, or
no, that's not really a thing. It's part of our tradition. We really want to stay focused on our practice, and sometimes family can pull you out of where you need to be, and I've already been preparing my family for several years. They already know. I go, and I
you
feel
and
like
your dad are close, are you not?
Of course, I built his website, and I'm helping him with his chess club, and I'm doing everything in my power to be present with him rather than, because we're not promised tomorrow. Anything can happen, I could go, he could go, it doesn't matter. Retreat may or may not happen. Anything could happen. So as a Buddhist, I prioritize being present with my people so that when I do have something this important to me, that's this profound, that I want to do, they can allow a little flexibility emotionally. Because I've been there for them. I've shown up for them. Even if I died tomorrow, I'm satisfied that I've done everything in my power to help them as much as I possibly can. And a lot of people can't say that. Even on a day-to-day basis, the people around them, they really showed up for. And we have all sorts of careers that have 3-year commitments. Like I was in the military before this. A couple, like 8 years ago, I was in the Air Force.
Did I know that you were? Oh, wow.
I don't know. I'm a veteran, and I had a lot of issues, because I was about to get deployed, to Latvia. I would have been one of the people in the Ukraine war program doing drone warfare. And we know what kind of carnage happened with the drones. I'm so lucky I got in a car crash, and they decided to separate me. Of course, now they've charged me $1,000 for STLI life insurance that I didn't use because they didn't discharge me properly. Like stuff like that, and so it just goes to show you how broken the system is for veterans, And we accept that. We accept it's so honorable to serve your country and even kill other people. But we don't accept when it's time for somebody to do something profound spiritual practice to benefit beings for 3 years. Oh, that's unacceptable. I can't talk to you on the phone. But if you're in Iraq or Kuwait shooting at people, it's acceptable. I don't believe that. I don't believe that that's, that morally and ethically, it shows you where our priorities are as a country that we glorify. I appreciate all the people who have served, my fellow brothers and sisters, but at the same time, serve yourselves, serve your country by being compassionate and wise. Serve your country by healing broken hearts and broken minds. That's what we need right now. You can make money for oligarchs later. Just no, don't. Just bad idea. But right now, it's really important, We understand. We just went through a giant pandemic. How many of us lost loved ones? How many of us got sick ourselves and were exposed to the idea of death? Right? So it's really important for us to just ground in and recognize life is impermanent. Let's tap into our infinite love while we can, as much as we can, as often as we can. And if possible, wake up. And 3 years, 3 months, and 3 moon cycles is what Buddha taught. It's the time it takes for a being to really, if all you do is completely spiritually meaningful towards enlightenment, you can wake up. And so I'm willing to go in. If I don't completely become enlightened, maybe I get a little bit more compassionate, a little bit more kind, a little bit more aware of the human condition and appreciative of the world around me. I think that's worth it.
Wow. Thank you so much for this work that you do. It's just really incredible.
It's my
I could
teachers.
listen to this. Yeah. Yeah.
It's really, if it wasn't for Crowley Rinpoche, Wangchen Rinpoche, Lama Mike Crowley, all of my venerable lamas, gurus, His Holiness Taisitcha Rinpoche, His Holiness Karmapa. I mean, honestly, I feel so honored to be alive. I know this practice saved my life. After my partner died, I know I would have made decisions that resulted in my early death. So I owe my life to this practice. And I want to help other people who have been suicidal, who have made lots of bad choices just based on grief and suffering, to know that, hey, if you can take a couple of days off from work, I can show you something that will change your life forever for the better. And it won't cost you a dime. Maybe
what
just
would you recommend to someone that's new?
do Nyungné.
Besides just
a ton of new people, this is their first practice. It's completely guided. It keeps you from self-sabotaging by not taking the practice seriously, which is very easy to do as a beginner. If you're willing to read the book, Buddhist Fasting Practices by Wangchen Rinpoche, then you can kind of set yourself up to be prepared because it talks about everything we do. And the book's really easy to get a hold of. Contact me if you need access to a PDF, And I just gotta say,
right.
This practice has single-handedly transformed my life. And I've done a million other things, in Buddhist practices. The problem is the combination of activity, body, speech, and mind discipline, and Tantra wasn't always there. A lot of times you go to an empowerment, somebody's speaking another language, you're not always aware of what's being said, you're not aware of the meaning, it's really difficult to connect to, and you leave, and then you do it on your own, and you have no daily guidance. Here, you'll have support and guidance from an English-speaking Sangha, an English-speaking guru, and you're connected directly to an authentic traditional lineage. And so there's that's a lot less to worry about than trying to fend for yourself on your own, doing chud for a first time, not having even done, basic fasting, not even having done basic purification, don't even know what Vajrasattva mantra is. This gives you a chance to learn some basic mantras and get some basic instruction you can take into your daily life. I think our teacher said, it's like you come, you get lunch, and you get a bag to go. It's kind of like that. You get something spiritually nourishing while you're here, and then you get instruction outside of here when you go into your regular world, reading Resolve to Practice Excellence every day. You can do that without coming here. Look up Resolve to Practice Excellence. It's a beautiful Vajrayana Buddhist prayer, and it helps you learn about dedicating merit, what that is, wishing for the good of all sentient beings, and also learning about your own nature. Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are mothers as limitless as the sky. All of this, all these words and terms I'm using, if you read the Resolve to Practice Excellence, it'll put it in direct context for you. And then, what does Om Mani Padme Hum mean? How does it close the doors to the 6 lower realms? You can find that in his book, Wangchen Rinpoche's book, Buddhist Fasting Practices. And I gotta go soon because it's time for me to make tormas, and we're about to start next session, but I just wanted to take a few minutes to kind of come up for air and just be like, yo, entheogenic community, I know I'm pretty silent, but I'm having the time of my life. If you guys want to hang out with me, you might have lost your chance for now, but you can read this book and you can maybe sign up to do practice in the future. And, I just wish everybody well.
Donate.
And
Donate to support your path. You're still taking donations, yeah?
I just want to say one thing, because a lot of people assume me becoming a nun, I have some kind of anxiety or taboo towards psychedelic community. I actually don't. As a matter of fact, my teacher said I could say this. If it wasn't for Bufo, I wouldn't have become a nun. If it wasn't for the psychedelics I worked with before this, I wouldn't have entered the Dharma path officially. Sure, I'm not working with that in retreat. Sure, I've taken vows now. But anyone who's working with psychedelics, I absolutely wish you absolute success. Even if you're just become a lay Buddhist and you don't take monastic vows and you have to avoid intoxicants. Yes, but there are certain plant medicines that make you very clear-minded, that don't intoxicate you. And I'm a believer that I can help bring you towards Dharma if your desire is to benefit sentient beings and help them reach liberation. Then you'll eventually enter a path. You'll eventually, hopefully, find an authentic teacher. That's my aspiration, my prayer for you. Even if you've met inauthentic teachers in the past and you've been through trauma in the past, just know that not everything is like that. And you can absolutely be successful in Dharma coming from a psychedelic background. I just want all of you guys to know that. I'm a living testament to that. And I just want you to know that your okayness can go sky high through the roof and become enlightenedness eventually, too. You can be better than just okay. So
beautiful. Thank you so much.
No
I appreciate
worries.
it. I'm going to put in your donation links because, I think it's important to support this work.
Well, I appreciate
Wow.
that. It's not required. Buddha made a vow. He said, all my followers will never go hungry or be homeless. And you know what? I haven't experienced anything less than that yet. So, if you feel called, the merit of helping out is high because I'm going to share it with everybody else in our community here. We always do appreciate if you donate to the center on our website, sercholing.org. If you send a PayPal donation, it'll go directly to the center. You don't have to put my name on it. You can be completely anonymous if you want to. It'll still go towards eventually benefiting us. And, me personally, if you feel called, I'll make sure it gets spread around so that other people are also benefiting as a result. So.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for everything. Have a blessed, what is the appropriate term? Have a beautiful fast?
Nyungné.
Nyungné.
Have a beautiful
But
Nyungné.
is that what you say?
Yeah, have a good Nyungné.
Have a great Nyungné.
Thank you. I will.
Thank you so much. We'll be in touch.
Peace. Blessings.
Thanks.
Soha.
Blessing to you.
Bye.
Bye. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you're feeling inspired, I'd appreciate it if you showed your love with a review. And check out my YouTube channel where you can find the video version of this podcast. You can also head to bethaweinstein.com to learn more about me and grab my free business growth trainings. Remember, you carry your own unique medicine, and your medicine is what we need for these times.